I think most of us, we kind of live our lives where we think, this is where I am financially, and if I were just had a little bit more, if I had a little bit more. And it seems like as soon as we hit the next line, the line moves and we go a little bit further. What is it about more? It seems like most of us live our lives with this never-ending desire for more. You know, Jesus had something to say about that in this next episode of Crossroads Online.
Nothing to fear now, for I am safe with you. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I'll lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. The battle belongs to you. Hey! And if you are for me, who can be against me? For Jesus, there's nothing impossible for you. You see the beauty. Oh, yes, you do. When all I see is a cross, God, you see the empty tomb. Oh, so when I fight, I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh, God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I'll lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. Almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against Daily get into it and we heavy on the grind. I woke up with money on my mind. I woke up with money on my mind. All the time. I woke up with money on my mind. Daily get into it and we heavy on the grind. I woke up with money on my mind. I woke up with money on my mind. All the time. I woke up with money on my mind. Daily get into it and we heavy on the grind.
So twice a year in my neighborhood, it's bulk trash day. Maybe you have the same thing in your neighborhood. And twice a year, you drive down the street and you see all the stuff that people are putting out to go to bulk trash day. And you're driving down, and it's like you're driving down like the Museum of Good Intentions. It's like the one day a year where your questionable purchase decisions are put on display for everyone to see. And you're driving down, and it's so funny to watch. I don't know if you've ever experienced this. You drive down the neighborhood on bulk trash day, and it's like the island of misfit toys, all the different random purchases that people have made. And there's some weird stuff on there. And like, I mean, you see some guy like dragging something out that, you know, he probably wished he hadn't bought, and it's like the walk of shame, trying to drag it out, hoping no one sees what you're bringing. You can hear his spouse in the house saying, you know, I told you didn't need that thing, get rid of it, you know. I mean, I've seen like popcorn makers, big giant movie popcorn makers. You know, someone had a movie theater era or something. I have seen all kinds of exercise equipment. You can just imagine. I once saw a very large karaoke machine. I think that karaoke machine probably ended a friendship. There was a despondent inflatable Santa just left on the curb in the middle of July, you know. Now, I'm not judging, because I have to be honest. I mean, I have way too much stuff in my house as well. Maybe you have way too much of your stuff in your house as well. I don't know how that happens exactly. I don't feel like I have that problem, but then you look downstairs in the basement and you're like, how did I get all of this stuff, you know? I mean, maybe you've experienced this as well. And I've had a few things that I've had to put out on bulk trash day. I once owned a snow broom. I don't know, why did I own a snow broom? It's like a snowblower, but less effective. If you don't know what a snow broom is, I don't blame you. You probably shouldn't. They probably shouldn't exist. They're not really that great to use, to be honest with you. But I owned a snow broom, and I had to take the walk of shame and put it out on bulk trash day. You know, twice a year, there's this moment where you have to put your financial decisions out on the curb for everyone to see. I like how John O said it last week. He was saying, you know, the one thing that we really wish is that no one could see all of our purchase decisions. Like, that terrifies us. If we could just, you know, open the books and everyone could see everything that we've bought. That's terrifying. Why? Because receipts tell a story. The things that we purchase tell a story about the things that we think will actually bring us happiness, things that we think are going to make us happy. And if I were to boil down into one word what we so often think will make us happy, what's the one thing we think will make us happy in the world? More will make me happy, right? I mean, if I had a little bit more, then I would be happy. If I could boil it down to one word, it's more. I mean, now, who wouldn't mind a little bit more? I mean, I think we would all like a little bit more. Would you like a little bit more money? Of course you would. In fact, if I could say right now, just quick poll here in the room, no shame, but raise your hand if you wouldn't mind being rich. Would you raise your hand? Okay, so of course, yeah, we would all, you know, that sounds great. You know, like if I could wave a magic wand right now and just add a couple zeros to your bank account, and, you know, I mean, no one's going to complain about that. And in fact, I think we all have this secret. Now, let me ask this. Who here knows someone that's rich? You have a friend, family member, right? Raise your hand. Okay, we all know someone that's rich. Now, be honest. Have you ever thought to yourself, you know what? If I were rich, I'd be better at being rich than that person. You know, they're stupid rich. I could be smart rich. You know, why do they spend their money on that or do that with their money? And we all kind of have this idea, this mindset where we're like, wow, I mean, I feel like I would be a better rich person than that person actually is. Now, here's the thing. You may not think you're rich, and that's fine. I totally get it. But every one of us, no matter how much money you have, we all have decisions to make about how we handle our money. We all have decisions to make about the posture that we have towards money. And the truth is, there's lots of places that you can get money advice. Just get on YouTube and search. I mean, you'll find all kinds of people who will tell you how to invest your money, how to spend your money. And some of it's good advice, some of it maybe not so good advice. But it's really interesting to hear the words of Jesus. Jesus has some different kind of money advice. In fact, Jesus, his whole idea is like he wants to shift our perspective, to completely shift our paradigm, our relationship with money. And that's why we're in this series, what Jesus said about money. The series we're in right now for the next couple weeks is what Jesus said about money. Now, what did Jesus say about money? It turns out Jesus said a lot about money. And sometimes I wish he didn't have so much to say about money. It would be a little bit easier. And this is a topic, look, none of us want to talk about money. You know, you're out to dinner with someone and the money topic comes up. It gets a little bit awkward. No one really wants to talk about money. We sidestep the conversation. It seems like the one thing, you're not supposed to talk about money, right? It's the topic we all want to avoid. It just so happens that Jesus didn't avoid it. He talked about money all the time. It was a topic that came up again and again and again. Now, I already know what you're thinking, and I have to say, I don't completely blame you. You're probably sitting here thinking to yourself, oh no, I knew it. I come to church, and I had to come to church on Money Sunday. I can't believe it. Maybe you don't attend church that often, and you're like, I cannot believe I tuned in on this Sunday. Or maybe you're brand new to church, and you're like, okay, I knew it. You know, they were going to talk about money, and here it is. I just want to say, first off, I just want to take all the anxiety right out of the table here. This is not a give more to the church Sunday. This is not a get ready for a guilt trip Sunday. This is not about a church budget, and it's not about asking you to give more money. So that's not the point of this series. That's not the point of this message. But, I do think that we need to talk about money because Jesus talked about money. And we want to talk about the things Jesus talked about. And he talked about money, and Jesus he brought it up again and again. Why? Because he wanted us to have freedom from money, the stronghold of money in our lives. And he wanted us to change our perspective, our relationship with money. And so that's what we're going to look at today in Luke chapter 12. And there's this passage in Luke chapter 12, and it's where it's that awkward moment where the money topic comes up. Jesus is having a conversation. He's teaching to a crowd of people, and someone kind of interrupts him with a question, and he asks Jesus some financial advice. It's about an inheritance. And Jesus shifts the perspective of this guy, and basically his message to this person in this story was this, that you can store more stuff, but it never brings more life. That's the idea that I hope you don't miss here today. You can store more stuff. You can spend your whole life storing stuff, packing your rooms with bigger things and buying more stuff. But guess what? You're going to find out one way or another that does not bring you more life. And that's the exact point that we see here in Luke chapter 12. It's called the parable of the fool because the fool didn't understand this. He completely missed it. And I kind of think that's funny, the parable of the fool. I don't know. It has a certain ring to it. And so Jesus gives this man a warning and a story. And so here we go. This is Luke chapter 12, starting in verse 13. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." I don't know if you've ever had family inheritance disputes or debates. I can tell you, you probably understand where this guy's coming from. Verse 14, Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you?" He's like, "Why are you putting me in the middle of this thing?" Then he said to him, "Watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." And he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, "What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops." In other words, I'm so rich, I don't know what to do with all my money. Then he said, "This is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns, and I'll build even bigger barns, and there I will store my surplus grain." First off, I just have to say this real quick. This passage is clearly built for Carroll County. I mean, we've got all of the ingredients right here in the middle of this story. We've got barns and bigger and grain, right? You know, it sounds like Carroll County. So let's jump right back into verse 19. Then he says this, "And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take it easy, eat, drink, and be merry." In other words, I've got life figured out. I'm just going to kind of live life, eat, drink, and be merry. Sounds good. Great retirement plan. But then, verse 20, "But God said to him, 'You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves but is not rich towards God. In other words, what is Jesus saying here? In other words, you can buy more stuff, but it never brings more life. And so we all kind of know this is true, but why do so many smart people keep chasing more? I mean, it seems like it's just like built into us. We chase more. And that's the first thing that I want us to see here is I want to drill down into this desire that Jesus speaks to in the heart of this passage where we need more. I've already got enough stuff. I can't even store it all. What am I going to do? I'm going to build bigger barns. And if I were to just summarize this entire passage that we just read, let me just summarize it for you like this. It goes, thirst for more, focus on more, build for more, you full. I think that's great. In other words, it's like more. My whole life is about more. You fool. And why is he a fool? Because he is completely clueless about how much he's missing it until it's too late. I mean, he has missed it completely. And that is, can I just say this? That is the problem with this topic. That's the problem. I mean, to talk about this topic of money, it's really, really hard. Because listen, we all have these kinds of like felt needs. We all have things like, for example, if I were saying, hey, today we're going to talk about anxiety. If you struggle with anxiety, you're immediately going to lean in because you feel that anxiety in your heart and you're like, what advice does Jesus have? What does God's word say about that? If you feel anxiety, you know it in your heart and you're experiencing it. It's a felt need right there in that moment. But most of us don't think that we have to change our perspective on money. There's no sense in our hearts that there's something wrong. Most of us don't have any idea that this is something that's going on in our hearts and in our lives. We're completely clueless. Guess what? The guy in the story happened to be completely clueless. He completely missed it until his life was coming to an end. And then suddenly he recognized it and realized it. And so let me just say it like this. If this doesn't feel like a problem to you, this topic, that might be part of the problem. If it doesn't seem like this is a problem, you're like, I can check out. I don't have this issue. That might be part of the problem. That was the fool's problem in this story. I mean, let's just think about it. Let's just say it like this. Most of us don't wake up in the morning and think to ourselves, you know what I need to do? I need to change my relationship with money. That's not the first thing that comes to our mind. It's not something that seems like an urgent priority for most of us in our lives. Most of us I wake up and I think to myself, where are my keys? Why does my dog Winston have syrup on his back? Those are the things that I think about when I wake up. But so we don't always have this sense of this need of it to shift and to change our relationship with money. But then Jesus holds up this mirror in this passage. And it helps us see that we're living in a loop desiring more. And I would describe the loop like this. We live in an upgrade, optimize, upsize loop. It's like upgrade, optimize, upsize, more. How can I find more? How can I have more? And so we don't really say this out loud, but I think almost every single one of us, we have this thing in our heads. And just admit this with me because you might not say it out loud, but every one of us have this thing in our heads where we think, if I hit blank, then I can relax. If I hit this imaginary number, whatever it is, I think it's different for every person. If I were to just hit this number, then I would be happy. Then I could relax. Then life would be okay. If I just had this salary, if I hit this square footage, if I had this number in the bank account, if I hit that promotion, and we just think to ourselves, wow, if I hit that, then I would be happy. But here's the thing that's really tough, and I don't know if you've experienced this. As soon as we hit that, the line moves. Have you noticed that? I mean, it seems like, as soon as we're like, wow, I finally got to this place, and I hit this thing, it seems like it went a little bit higher. And I mean, it's interesting because every one of us, the line, no matter where your line is just a little bit more than what you have, right? I mean, every one of us, that's just natural. I don't know, I've experienced that myself. Whenever I was just starting out, I was like, if I could just own a car. And then I was like, if I could just own a car that actually ran most of the time. And I was like, if I could just, own a house, that would be amazing. If I could just own a house that was big enough that I could have kids in my house and they wouldn't drive me nuts, that would be amazing. And it's so maddening because this has happened to me, and I'm sure it's probably happened to you, where you finally hit this imaginary line And it's like so elusive. It seems like the line just moves magically the moment that you get to that next spot. And it seems like that's not that big of a deal, right? It seems kind of like a harmless thing. But this desire for more in our lives charges hidden fees. It has a cost. You might not recognize it. See, the more that we need more, the more that we experience some things in our lives. The more that we need more, the more we experience anxiety in our lives. Because why? I need more. I have this desire for more. I don't feel like I'm secure until I have this more. And not to mention all the anxiety that comes with just having more stuff, more storage, more things to take care of. Where am I going to put it all? How am I going to store it all? It comes with all this anxiety because you got all this stuff that you now have to take care of as well. And then the other thing, the more we need more, the more we experience isolation. Why? Because people become like a means to an end. If you really are so focused on more, you start missing the people around you, and you stop caring about them, and you start caring more about this stuff. And then last but not least, you experience a lack of joy. You can't be happy with the things that you have and the possessions that you have. You feel this constant sense of, wow, I would finally be happy if I had this. I could be generous and I would give more if I had this much money. I can't do it now because I don't have quite enough. I don't have this, whatever this line is, this imaginary line. And it stops us and it keeps us waiting, and we miss joy in the process. Now, I say all of that to you, and none of that surprises you. Like, we all shake our heads up and down. We all know this. We've all heard the quotes. Jono said last week, Rockefeller was famous for saying, how much money do you need? And he said, just a little bit more. That was Rockefeller. And we all have seen, the Netflix documentary on the person who was so rich, and what did they need? A little bit more. And so none of us are surprised by this. None of us are shocked whenever I say that there's this desire in our hearts, and that we all kind of think, though, that it's someone else that has this problem. And we don't recognize and realize it in our own hearts. And we see the documentary and we understand that it's true, that no matter how far up this chain we get, it's never going to be enough. We all know that. But then we live trying to get further and further up. And we live trying to hit the line. And we miss it again and again and again. And we end up wanting more and actually enjoying less of life. And it's like this. It's like you put a ladder up on the side of a building and you think, wow, if I were, I'm going to just climb this ladder. And once I get to the top of the ladder, everything's going to be great. And then you recognize somewhere along the line that you put the ladder on the wrong wall and you're climbing up. And then sometimes you feel like you're stuck halfway up the ladder. You can't even go anywhere. That's what happened in this story. This guy had built his whole life walking up this ladder only to find that he had built his life in the wrong thing and going up the wrong direction. And that is why, listen, that is why Jesus comes across so strong here. He's not trying to guilt us. He's not trying to shame us, but it's interesting Jesus uses such strong language because he's typically, Jesus, he's pretty caring. So often he's a caring, compassionate, he has a certain voice of care and compassion. But in this situation, seems like he is desperate to get this guy's attention. He's desperate. So he would say, look, I understand what you're on. You're on the never-ending search for more. Don't do that. And this is his word. He says this, watch out. Be on your guard. Like, don't do that. Get off that train. It's not going anywhere you want to go. Now, if you're sitting here thinking in this story, I totally get this because I think the same thing. Well, okay, I understand what Jesus is saying here, but good thing that he's talking to a rich person, right? Because it's really easy whenever Jesus, and there's a number of exchanges where Jesus is talking to someone who has a lot of money, and I just kind of think to myself, okay, well, I can kind of check out here because I'm not rich. He's talking to rich people. This passage is for someone who has big barns and has so much stuff they don't know where to put all their stuff, and they build even bigger barns. And this is for the really rich people. So I can just kind of check out. This is for someone else. And if that's you, I just want to say I totally get it, and I think that's pretty natural. A couple things. I could tell you, and you probably already know this, that by global standards, every one of us here in this room is rich by global standards. We have so much stuff, we don't even know what to do with it. In the history of the world, never has there been a nation with so much stuff. And so when you just look at it per capita, I could throw statistics out at you, but guess what? It wouldn't matter. I couldn't really convince you. And I get that. I understand that, because a lot of times we don't feel rich. And I understand, by the way, also that there are people that have legitimate financial situations going on. And if that's you, I totally understand that. But just by and large, for the most part, we have enough stuff. The problem in America is not, we don't have enough stuff for the most part, right? And so by global standards, we are rich. But I will say this, the point of this passage isn't how much we have, it's what we do with what we have. The point is not like, wow, this guy had so much stuff in his barn. It's just more obvious when you have that much stuff, it's that much more obvious that that's not the problem, as the problem is not more stuff. But it doesn't matter how much stuff you have is not the issue. That's not the point that Jesus is making. Jesus is saying, what's your posture towards the things that you have? What are you going to do with the things that you have? What's your priority it's about perspective, and it's about what? It's about addressing this hole, this never-ending desire, this never-ending need for more. And that never-ending need for more is really obvious when you have everything you could possibly imagine you would need and you still feel it. But guess what? It's still true, even if you're way down here or you're all the way up here on the financial ladder. And so here's the thing. Where do we go from here? How do we address this hole, this chasing more? We could do a couple things. We could keep trying to find more and build bigger barns like this guy was, upgrade, upsize, optimize. We could try to find clever ways to store more stuff and try to relieve anxiety and stress by finally having enough stuff and then finding out that that doesn't really work. Or we could listen to the words of Jesus and the heart of this passage, and we could realize that we're actually made for more than just stuff. And that's the second point. We're made for more. Life is more than just more stuff, more barns, bigger barns. And so I think here's the thing that's kind of interesting, and don't miss this. I think a lot of times we hear the words of Jesus when he's talking about money, and we think to ourselves, what Jesus is really saying is that you should want less stuff. Like your expectations, or you should want less. Your expectations for life are too high. That's kind of what we think. And they're like, hey, take your expectations down a couple clicks. That is not the message of this passage, and it's not the idea here that this guy building barns had his sights set too high. It's that he had way too small a view of what life was really all about. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, Jesus' message really was this: why do you spend so much time building bigger barns when your life was made for so much more? Like, why do you care about bigger barns? Like, more is not bad, but you're chasing the wrong more. You have the wrong idea, the wrong perspective of what life is all about. And so the problem is not more. The problem is that we're actually shooting too low. Our expectations for life and our desires for life are too small. We're just looking at barns. Jesus is like, I've got so much more for you. Who cares about how big your barn is? You're thinking this is what life's all about. So let me give you a little idea here, a little picture of this. So yeah, one thing to say, this kind of summarizes this. We just spend our whole lives focused on chasing the wrong more. Isn't that so true? And let me show you what I mean by that. Here's a little chart that might help you. So this is what we often do. We spend time chasing more. And what do? We focus on quantity. How much stuff do I have? How big is my barn? Jesus is like, wow, there's quality of life. There's a different kind of way to view life. What really matters about life? There's chasing more, which is all about temporary things. Guess what? You can't take anything with you to heaven. There's no U-Haul going with you along the way. So it's temporary. Jesus is saying about things that are eternal. And that was the point when he said, you fool, your life is going to be over just today. And then there's chasing more. I'm the owner, says chasing more. It's my stuff. But made for more is I'm the steward. It's God's stuff. Chasing more is focused on stuff, and made for more is focused on the right people, or focused on people and the right priorities. And so it's not just focused on things, it's focused on things that matter, like people and right priorities. And then the last one is chasing more never feels like enough. We've already addressed that. More. But the made for more that Jesus refers to is that he is always enough. And so think about this from one thing to think when we think about this chart is we have to think about where the source is. Because so often our perspective is wrong because we get the source of where everything comes from. Who provides everything we have in the first place? And that can so often change our perspective because we think we were the ones that did it. I'm a self-made man. There's no such thing as a self-made man. God has provided and allowed us to have what we have. And so there's this line in the passage. I love this line, and it really kind of could sneak by you in Luke 12:16. It says this: "The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest." Stop right there for a second. That starts with a gift, right? I mean, that's a gift. It's the ground of a certain man yielded an abundant harvest. Guess what? This guy got a harvest. Why? Because it was provided to him. God provided that harvest. The guy didn't manufacture the rain. He didn't create photosynthesis. But his inner dialogue in this situation, in this passage, if you look at the pattern of this passage, he says, it's my grain. It's my crops. It's my barn. It's my surplus. So I'm going to build bigger because it's my stuff, right? And so the issue here that Jesus is pointing to is not that the planning is a problem. If you're a financial planner and you're really good at planning your finances, God bless you. That's a great thing to be able to do. The problem isn't planning. The problem is planning that never looks up at the source, that God was the one that gave me this in the first place. The problem is planning that never looks out at the people around you who might have needs. It's planning that's all about me, me, me. And so planning is not the issue here. It's the issue that we don't plan in a way that actually honors God. And that's exactly what this guy is doing. And this whole thing is like an adventure in missing the point. He has missed the entire point of his entire life. And so often we find this the hard way because we think that money is going to solve all the problems in our life. And then we find out in those hard moments that that's not true. Like money doesn't cure cancer. Money doesn't fix a broken marriage. Money doesn't solve anxiety in our problems or fill this hole, this desire for more in our lives. It just doesn't do it no matter how much we try. And there's moments of clarity, crystal clarity in our lives where we suddenly recognize this is true. Sometimes we have to grapple with it in the hard moments of life where we're like, wow, finances aren't the issue. There's something else going on. And this happened this past year to me and my family. I remember, you guys know, last year my dad was diagnosed with a very serious cancer. He went through intensive chemo for an entire year. It was a huge ordeal. By the grace of God, he's still on the other side of that, still recovering in many ways, but he's doing really well. And that's a huge miracle and a blessing. But I remember this moment in the hospital so clearly. And my mom, we weren't sure what was going to happen with my dad. And my mom pulled me aside and we were just kind of reflecting on what was happening. And she looked at me and she said, "Kevin, you grew up, we didn't have that much growing up. We didn't have a ton of stuff. And here we are now. And I never thought we would be in this place financially, but we're like doing pretty well. We're doing better than we ever have before financially. And I thought that's what we needed. But this moment, while your dad is here on this bed suffering from cancer, we're not sure what's going to happen. I realize and recognize that money doesn't really matter. What matters is faith and family and love and your health. All of those things are the things that really matter. And so what does Jesus want for us? What I just said, that passage or that story is Luke 12 in one sentence. That's what Jesus is saying. Don't get stuck on more. What does Jesus want for us? He wants the better more. The better more is to trust the source. That's the first thing. There's a different kind of more that we can look for. We're searching for more in all the wrong places. Jesus says, trust the source, prioritize people, and live with eternity in mind. And that's my hope, my prayer for you. Enjoy what God provides. Here's what I would say. Look, I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't go and enjoy a nice meal. I love a great meal. You should go enjoy a nice meal. You should enjoy a nice plan a trip somewhere if you're able to do that financially. That's fantastic. But here's my encouragement. Don't live like this. Live with open hands and realize and recognize that the things that we've been given are to be used to bless the people around us. The rich fool's problem in this situation was not abundance. The point of this story is not to say having bigger barns is a bad thing or having stuff is a bad thing. The problem wasn't his abundance. The problem was his autonomy. He was looking only to himself, living only for himself, insulated from God and insulated from other people. He didn't care about anyone else. And so here's the shift that I want you to make is that no matter where you are financially, if you have any ability, if there's any margin in your finances for you, instead of saying like, hey, what am I going to do with this? Think for just a moment, God, what have you given this to me for? Why do I have this margin in my finances? What is it that you would want me to do with this money? And this single question moves us from bigger barns to bigger blessings. And I love what Jim Elliot said. He said it like this, and I think it gets to the heart of what I'm trying to say. He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. And this is why point 3 is more that lasts. Luke 12 is about freedom. It's about freedom from the my mentality. It's not about my crops. It's not about my barns. It's not about my surplus. Jesus says, stop that. You were made for more than that. Don't live that small life. And so the shift begins from us getting out of this mindset because it's so hard for us. It's so natural for us to live there. Sometimes the shift happens with one small intentional decision to choose not just to live for me, but to give to someone else. And that intentional outward decision reorients your heart towards something that lasts, to an investment that lasts, not just as something that's going to be here and gone tomorrow. And so here's what I want to encourage you to do. We wanted to think about a way to make this really simple. And we don't want this to be about you giving more money to Crossroads. If you feel like God is leading you to give money to the church, then God bless you. That's fantastic. But that, I've told you from the beginning, that's not the point. We just want you to shift in your heart, your perspective to say, it's all about me, to say, how can I bless someone else? And even that little move, God can work in such profound and powerful ways. And we want to make that really simple. And we thought, one way that you could do that is that you could invest in someone else's mission opportunity. Invest in someone else's mission opportunity. Let me explain for just a second. You may or may not know this, but here at Crossroads, we have some incredible missions partners, both here locally and globally all around the world. I mean, we've got stuff right here in our backyard that we invest in. And part of it is that we want to invest in other people's missions because we think it's important for us as a church, as a healthy thing, to give to other ministries and other nonprofits right here in Westminster. And so we do that. We support all kinds of missions and ministries right in our backyard in Carroll County. But we also have these incredible partners globally, both in Ghana and in Nicaragua. And you may or may not have heard us talk about them, but we have some churches and some ministries in those countries that are doing incredible things for the kingdom. God is doing an incredible work in each one of those countries. And last week, I had this opportunity to connect with Bright, who is the pastor out in Ghana. And Bright, if you have never had a chance to meet him, is an incredible guy. He actually flew from Ghana to this conference, and all the pastors at Crossroads got to go and hang out with him. And Bright is this young, charismatic, dynamic, filled with the Holy Spirit leader who is so on fire for what God is doing in this church in Ghana. And I mean, it's infectious to be around him. To see his excitement and passion for God's work in Ghana is incredible. And what I love about our missions partners, our international missions partners, is this not just something that we just kind of send a check to and we don't know anything about. We have this relationship with the people that are on the ground, and as we build that relationship, God does an incredible thing in both of our lives, in both of our ministries. And we've been so encouraged by watching Bright and watching how God's working in Ghana. And that was true for me last week. I mean, I just walked away so excited about how God's working in our church, in our ministry in Ghana. And so here's our idea. We're going to have a couple missions opportunities like we do every year. And we just want more people to experience what God's doing in other places because it gets a bigger perspective, a bigger picture of what God's doing. We get so focused on this small thing, the more our barns, and Jesus is trying to say, there's a bigger thing happening. Get out of your small perspective. You were made for more. And we just think there's something about having more people experience that this year. And so one way to do that, maybe you should go on the missions trip this year. That could be for you. But for some people, it's even better and more healthy to say, you know what? It's not about me going on the trip. It's not about me. I want to bless someone else to go on a trip that they may not have otherwise been able to afford to go on. And I've been able to go on a couple missions trips in my life. And the only reason I was able to go is because someone cared enough to say, I'm going to invest and Kevin going to that trip, and my life was changed. And so you could just imagine one person who's really wanting and feeling called to go on a trip to Ghana, to Nicaragua this year, and even a small gift, a small donation, it could be $5, it could be $10, it could be more than that if you're able to do it, would so bless someone that would want to go on a trip like this. And just imagine someone signing up for a trip this year and then finding out that part of their trip is paid for because you cared enough to say, you know what, I'm going to invest in someone else. It's not about my barns, my stuff. It's about this mission that God has for us. And another thing that I want to encourage you to do, and by the way, if you want to do that, you can find us online. There's some ways to go. You can go to crossroads140.com/follow, and one of the opportunities right there is to invest in someone's missions opportunity. You can also just find on the website lots of information and connect with us online if you want to do that. Another thing to consider is I just want all of us to shift our mindset. That's really the message of Jesus here. It's just to get your head out of my barns and my stuff and think bigger. And so here's my encouragement. This week, it's going to be kind of hard, but this week, anytime you have this moment where you say like my car, my house, my weekend, my vacation, whatever it is, I like playing guitar, my guitar, right? As soon as you say I want you to pause for a minute and think to yourself, wait a second. I'm saying but at the end of the day, God, I know this is yours, that everything that I have comes from you. And even in that 30-second silent prayer begins to reorient and shift our hearts. And if you could just to catch yourself a handful of times this week and say, wow, I just said and the more you catch it, the more you realize and recognize the heart posture that you have. And then just for a brief moment, say a silent prayer and watch how God begins to shift your heart. I want to close with this. I was thinking back just a little more than a month ago. I got up on a Saturday morning, and I had a class here at the campus, and I had to get up early, and I had to be here, and I had to get ready for this class, and I was pretty early in the morning on Saturday morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. And I got a call from another leader at the church, and I pick up. It was a little strange he was calling so early, and he said, Kevin, I hate to ask this of you early on a Saturday morning, but I have a situation. There's a woman that we're friends with, and sadly her daughter has had cancer for a number of years, and she is on her deathbed. She's likely going to pass away today, and she's asking for a pastor. And are you able to go? Like, she needs you right now. And I said, absolutely. I mean, I remember driving there that morning. I had no idea what to expect. I mean, all I knew is that there was a little girl who was in elementary school who was likely going to die of cancer, and I was going to walk into a room. And I walked into that house having no idea. I mean, was there going to be frustration? Was there going to be anger? Was there going to be desperation? I mean, was there going to be despair in the room when I walked in? And I walked into that room, and there was peace. There was this incredible peace in this room. There was even a sense of just of almost joy, as strange as that is to say, because they were so aware that God was there, and it was such a beautiful, holy moment in so many ways. And I walked into that room, and I didn't know what to expect. There was a girl named Hayden. That was the girl who was sadly in this situation, and I've talked to the family. They've given me the okay to share this. And so I walk in, and I'll never forget, Hayden's laying there in the bed, and clearly cancer has overtaken her body. And I kind of felt bad walking into the room. I kind of felt a little bit like I was invading, or, like I just wanted to let her rest or whatever. And she immediately lit up with this incredible smile. I mean, it was just unbelievable to see the way that she would just light up in that very moment. I mean, and she immediately put this I love you sign and just welcomed me in, and I mean, for her to go through something as hard as that and to have the joy that she did, I mean, I have a hard time. I mean, most of us, like, we ask our kids to take out the trash. It's a hard time, they struggle and they're not going to be able to deal with it. This little girl, Hayden, was sitting there with a smile on her face, knowing that that very day she was going to die. And I remember walking in, and she said, "I'm thirsty. Can you help me get a drink?" And she kind of had a hard time saying it because cancer was in her throat. And I looked, and there was a water bottle there, and I wasn't sure what to do. And her mom, who was incredible, her name's Sam, immediately jumped into action. And she was just like the most beautiful picture of caring and compassion in that moment, just a beautiful picture of a mother's love. She crawled into bed with her daughter, and she took her in her arms, and she got a syringe, and she slowly began to dribble water into her daughter's mouth, which she was struggling to drink. She was almost choking on it because it was just so hard. And you could tell even after she had that drink that she was still thirsty. And I was heartbroken to see, like, all I could think is like, gosh, all she needs, I mean, can someone help her get a drink? But I mean, even in her last dying breath, she still was thirsty. And I had this idea that I was going to read a passage, and I didn't know where to go, and Revelation 7 came to mind. And I wish I could tell you that I had this scripture memorized and that I was smart enough to think through what this word was going to say. All I knew is that I read Revelation 7 sometimes when I go to houses like this. I had no recollection of what it said exactly. And I read these words in Revelation 7 after we prayed that day together. And this was the promise in Revelation 7. Never again will they hunger. Never again will they thirst. The sun will not beat down on them, nor any scorching heat. For the Lamb at the center of the throne will be their shepherd. He will lead them to springs of water, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. And can I just tell you, I mean, the moment where I got to that line, they will thirst no more. Everyone in that room was choking up, and I could hardly say it without crying because it was so profound and it was so clear that God was right there in that space. Because, I mean, I just knew that that promise was true for Hayden. We will thirst no more. That promise was true for her, and that promise is true for you. I know that we're thirsty. I mean, we live life thirsty, don't we? We live life thinking more is the answer. If I could only have a little bit more, I could only have an extra more in my bank account, another car, another financials, another vacation, whatever. We are thirsty for more. Our whole life we spend thirsty for more. But Jesus says these words. He says that to the thirsty, I will give water. And this is not just ink on a page. It's a promise being spoken right here to you in this room. And Jesus said this in his Gospels. He says, to the thirsty, I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. Listen, you can find more stuff. You can always store more stuff, but it's never going to bring you more life. Life comes from one place. The one place where you will thirst no more is when you meet Jesus himself. And that's the promise that he has here. And so, may we stop building bigger barns and start being bigger blessings. May we live for what lasts, and may we thirst no more. That's my prayer. Let me pray for us. Lord, thank you so much for this promise, for this word, from your word, Lord. Lord, I just pray that we would get a bigger perspective. Lord, our perspective on life so often is just tied to money and possessions and things. And gosh, we know at the end of the day, none of that lasts and none of that matters. And yet somehow we get so stuck living there and thinking about that and moving through that same cycle of trying to find more and trying to build more and trying to believe that all the stuff that I have is mine. And Lord, help shift our hearts. And Lord, I know that this is a stronghold for so many people, and so often we don't recognize or realize that it is. And so, Lord, I know that you're going to speak and move and open eyes and ears and hearts, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Well, hey, again, welcome, and so grateful and glad that you're tuning in. And now as we transition into a time of giving, we say this sometimes, but it is an extension of our worship. See, worship is all heaven's about. It's the greatest thing that's going to occupy our time in eternity, is that we would worship God for who he is, acknowledging him for his goodness. And that's us giving back to God. And so worship is an extension of this. It's anytime we posture our lives in a manner that puts God first, and that can be obedience and it can feel obligatory. But I think that as we journey with Jesus, it's a discovery of affection. It's to say that I get to give out of the goodness. I get to give out of the understanding of God's affection. I get to give as a response to the gospel of Jesus. And so it becomes less obligation and more infatuation, more intimacy, more trust in God. And generosity just becomes this reflection of our relationship where we get to give. We don't feel we have to give. We get to give. And so this is first displayed by God. God never asks us to do something he hasn't modeled himself. And so he loved us so much, it says, that he gave his one and only Son. And so this is an opportunity for us to worship God in our giving, to trust him, and to make this move in our heart, not just in mechanical motion, but in trust and affection that we get to respond to God. Maybe you're there, maybe you're not, but I would encourage you to explore the opportunity to take that step of trusting God with more than just our time and our lives, but even our finances, and seeing where God might take it, how he might use it to lead people to life-changing faith in Jesus. Let me pray for the offering. Jesus, thank you for those who you would impress on their heart, Lord, to take a step of faith and to give as a response, Lord, and as an act of worship. God, help us to be good stewards of these funds and to use them, Lord, to address real needs and to advance your kingdom on earth. Jesus, it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Carried a burden for too long on my own. I wasn't created to bear it alone. I hear your invitation to let it all go. I see it now, I'm laying it down, and I know that I need you. I run to the Father.